It's no secret that the United States tends to rub a lot of countries the wrong way. Recently, though, the US has started to alienate some of its longtime allies. Ready? Let's go. First up, we're heading to Germany. Germany and the US go way back, sharing a complex history full of ups and downs. But recently things have been a bit frostier than a Bavarian winter. Remember the NSA spying scandal? Yeah, turns out tapping Angela Merkel's phone wasn't the best way to say Guten Tag. And then there's the whole Nord Stream 2 debacle. The US, seeing it as a way for Russia to increase its influence in Europe, has slapped sanctions on it, much to Germany's annoyance. The Trump administration's America First policies, particularly on trade, left a sour taste in many German mouths. One thing's for sure, the relationship is complicated, and the US needs to put in some serious effort if it wants to patch things up. Next, we're heading south of the border to Mexico, a country rich in culture, history, and natural beauty. Let's start with the elephant in the room, or rather the wall that's supposed to be in the room. This wall has been a point of contention for years, symbolizing division rather than unity. The US's insistence on building a border wall, coupled with its hardline stance on immigration, has understandably ruffled some feathers in Mexico. Protests and public outcry have become common, reflecting the deep-seated frustrations of the Mexican people. Then there's the war on drugs, a decades-long conflict that has had devastating consequences for Mexico. This war has led to countless lives lost and communities torn apart. The US, with its insatiable demand for illegal drugs, bears a lot of responsibility for the violence and instability plaguing its southern neighbor. The drug trade routes have left a trail of destruction in their wake. The US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, replaced NAFTA, but it's still a source of tension. Trade policies continue to impact the economies and livelihoods of people on both sides of the border. The US needs to acknowledge its role in the relationship's struggles and start treating its neighbor with the respect it deserves. Diplomatic efforts and mutual understanding are crucial for a healthier relationship. After all, a little bit of understanding can go a long way in building bridges, even when there's a wall in the way. It's time to focus on what unites us rather than what divides us. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to land in Saudi Arabia. The US, thanks to its shale oil boom, isn't as reliant on Saudi oil as it used to be. And Saudi Arabia, sensing this shift, is diversifying its portfolio both literally and figuratively. They're investing heavily in renewable energy and cozying up to other global players, like China and Russia. The US has also been critical of Saudi Arabia's human rights record, particularly after the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The US-Saudi relationship is at a crossroads. The days of blind trust and oil-fueled alliances are over. Next up, we're sailing to Denmark, a country often celebrated for its picturesque landscapes and cozy hygge lifestyle. Denmark might be known for its cozy vibes, but when it comes to the US, things are about as icy as a Copenhagen winter. The relationship between these two nations has seen better days. Remember that time Trump tried to buy Greenland? Yeah, that didn't go over so well. The Danish government was baffled, and the proposal was met with widespread ridicule. Denmark, a founding member of NATO, has also been feeling the pressure from the US to increase its military spending. The US has been quite vocal about its expectations. The US argues that all NATO members need to contribute their fair share, but Denmark isn't exactly keen on becoming a military powerhouse. The Danish government prefers to focus on diplomacy and development. Denmark, like many European countries, was disappointed by the US withdrawal from Afghanistan and its perceived unreliability on the world stage. This move has left many allies questioning the US's commitment. Denmark isn't about to sever ties with the US anytime soon. The historical and cultural ties run deep, and both nations benefit from their alliance. But the relationship is strained, and the US needs to realize that bullying and pressure tactics aren't the best way to win friends and influence people. Mutual respect and understanding are key to mending this frosty relationship. Get ready for a Bollywood-level drama, folks, because we're heading to India. For years, the US has courted India as a key ally in the region, particularly as a counterweight to China. But India, with its history of non-alignment and strategic autonomy, isn't about to become anyone's pawn. One major point of contention is the US's relationship with Pakistan, India's arch-rival. The US sees Pakistan as a key player in the fight against terrorism, but India views them as a state sponsor of terrorism. The US and India have been locked in a trade dispute for years, with both sides accusing the other of unfair practices. India is wary of the US's unpredictability, particularly after the Trump era. The Biden administration has tried to repair the relationship, but it will take more than just words to convince India that the US is a reliable partner. Bonjour and welcome to France. Remember that whole submarine deal? The US, UK and Australia decided to form a new security pact, AUKUS, effectively cutting France out of a lucrative submarine contract. The French were furious, accusing the US of betrayal and backstabbing. They even went so far as to recall their ambassadors from Washington and Canberra. The submarine deal was just a symptom of a larger issue, a growing sense of frustration in France towards the US. The French feel like the US takes them for granted, ignoring their concerns and interests. The US needs to realize that France is a proud and independent nation with its own interests and priorities. They can't just assume that France will always be there, blindly following their lead. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to sail into some choppy geopolitical waters as we arrive in Panama, a country with a rich history and a strategic location. Panama and the US have a long and complicated history, marked by interventions, treaties, and that whole "we built a canal through your country" thing. The Panama Canal has been a crucial maritime route for over a century, but lately Panama has been looking for new friends, seeking to diversify its alliances and economic partnerships, and China, with its deep pockets and ambitious infrastructure projects, has been more than happy to oblige. The Asian giant sees Panama as a key player in its Belt and Road Initiative. We're talking massive investments in ports, railways, and other critical infrastructure, and even a potential new canal that could rival the existing one. China is eyeing up a route through Nicaragua, a neighboring country which, if built, would be a direct challenge to the Panama Canal, potentially shifting the balance of maritime power in the region. Panama is also drawn to China's no-strings-attached approach to development, which contrasts sharply with Western aid. Unlike the US, which often attaches conditions like human rights and democracy promotion to its aid, making it more complicated and sometimes less appealing, China is happy to build bridges, roads, and other infrastructure without asking too many questions or imposing stringent conditions. This pragmatic approach has made China an attractive partner for Panama, which is eager to modernize and expand its infrastructure. For Panama, it's simply a matter of pragmatism and seizing opportunities for growth and development in a rapidly changing world. Hold on to your Ushankas, comrades, because we're about to dive headfirst into the icy depths of US-Russia relations. From the Cold War to the current conflict in Ukraine, the US and Russia have a long and storied history of rivalry and mistrust. The US accuses Russia of meddling in elections, invading its neighbors, and generally being a bad actor on the world stage. Russia, in turn, accuses the US of hypocrisy, imperialism, and trying to contain its rise as a global power. The situation in Ukraine is just the latest chapter in this long and twisted saga. The US has provided billions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine, while Russia has amassed tens of thousands of troops on the border. It's a new Cold War, but this time it's being fought with sanctions, cyber attacks, and disinformation campaigns. Grab your toques and a double-double, eh? Because we're heading north to Canada. Canada and the US have long enjoyed a special relationship, one built on shared values, a common border, and a mutual love of hockey. But lately, that relationship has been tested. It all started with the Trump-era trade war, which saw tariffs slapped on Canadian steel and aluminum. The US argued it was about national security, but Canada saw it as an attack on a key industry and a betrayal of a long-standing partnership. Then there was the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, a project that would have transported Canadian oil to US refineries. Canadians often feel like they're an afterthought to the US, ignored, and taken for granted. Fasten your seatbelts, folks, because we're about to enter the dragon's den as we land in China. The US and China are locked in a battle for global dominance, a clash of titans that's playing out on multiple fronts: economic, military, technological, and even ideological. The trade war, initiated by the Trump administration and continued in a more subdued form by Biden, has been a major source of tension. Tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods have hurt both economies. Then there's the military buildup in the South China Sea, where China has been building artificial islands and militarizing existing ones. And let's not forget about Taiwan, a self-governing island that China claims as its own. The US has vowed to defend Taiwan in case of an attack, a commitment that has infuriated Beijing. And that's today's breakdown. I hope you enjoyed this overview of the countries that are increasingly frustrated with the US. The US has made mistakes, no doubt about it. But it also remains a vital player on the world stage, and its actions, or inactions, have real consequences. What kind of role does it want to play in the world? Let me know your thoughts, and be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you found it insightful.